Welcome back to another episode of the Inkwell podcast. I'm your host, Todd Rayner, and I have a really cool guy in the indie scene, Tom Hutchinson, who is with Big Dog Inc. So just get him in here, and then we'll get this going for you. Welcome, Tom. How you doing?
Hello, how are you?
We're good. Living the dream, as I like to say, making
Yeah,
comics and having a good time doing it. So
that's it.
uh,
That's it.
that's 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 all we can all ask for. But we'll there's a few questions. Just want to get people to get to know you a little bit, your story. Funny thing is I think I've met you a couple times on a personal level, and I know we've been social friends for quite a while.
Yeah,
Back when I was kind of
up Emerald City way, right? Emerald City Comic
yeah,
Con.
okay, it's
Yeah,
really funny you remember. I because like I as someone who does table shows, I know you meet like so many faces, and I'm a face, like I'll recognize faces, but not necessarily put them with names.
sure.
But that was a few years ago, and I was like,
Oh my
before I
God,
was
yeah,
even doing
that's
my own stuff.
like, yeah. I mean, the last time I was at Emerald City was my first year with Aspen, which
Yeah.
would have been like 2016 or
Hmm.
ish, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I haven't been back there since. So it's one of those shows that I always liked, but after we broke off at Aspen and kind of reset the company and stuff,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then COVID came around and things just went, it's just like,
Yeah.
all right, well, that's a long way to go for an unknown reception during COVID time. So I just haven't been
Yeah.
back, and it's a place I'd like to go back to, but just haven't yet.
Yeah, it's that was like a few years after the wife and I moved out to Seattle, and we would go as fans. I think I met you right the year before I started doing Ice Pick and my own, comics and stuff. And I was still kind of tossing the idea, like throwing out, like, oh, get into the industry as a colorist and things like that. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's really cool. I can't remember half the people I meet at shows, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm
But
pretty sure you
we're
were showing me like color stuff. Like you were
yeah,
like, "Hey, I do colors like
yeah,
like on an iPad, thing." Like
yeah.
that's sort of my recollection.
Yeah, it was, and I was like, well, that was the only way to really show digital colors. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like iPad, iPhone, whatever. But this is about your story because as Big Dog Inc., I've kind of, like you mentioned, Aspen, you kind of started this company way before 2016, and I always like to start asking indie creators like, what really got them to pursue creating indie comics in the first place? Was it wherever that inspiration came from?
I there was no inspiration. Let's just be it's the honest thing. The one thing that a lot of people struggle with me with is that I'm very straightforward. I tend to be
Yeah.
gruff. But all of that is just from my experience. It's like there's no reason to like BS anything. There's no reason to like
Hmm.
sugarcoat stuff. Like the reality for me is there was no inspiration for me to be like I'm going to make comics. It was just simply I loved comics. I grew up with comics pretty much my entire life.
Hmm.
I was born in the '70s, and I discovered comics in the late '70s, and really from then on, it's been with me, one form or another. So I've always been involved in it. But when I started to get to a point where I thought, okay, let me see if I could make a comic. Um, it was originally from an art standpoint because I'd always been an artist. I'd always drawn and stuff. Um, so I started to kind of draw things, just sketches, and let me just draw again for the first time in forever,
Hmm.
and that's where Critter came from. My
Yeah.
my superhero character is eventually I got tired of like drawing the X-Men or whatever, and I just created her to draw her because that became more interesting. So that was my first
Hmm.
sort of divergence from you know breaking into comics like, oh, I'm gonna go to Marvel and write, draw
Hmm.
the X-Men. Like, no, it was like I'm having more fun like creating my own thing over here. So that was my first divergence. But as I was drawing, I was also realizing that even though even if I was getting better at what I was doing, I started to realize like, well, now I got to draw like a horse and a car and a building, and I'm like,
Yeah,
my
it
my
sucks.
my artistic evolution is not moving fast enough to
Yeah.
like put me there, because I wasn't like I was drawing every day or anything. It wasn't like that was my, put the
Hmm.
blinders on and do it. It was just like on the side and when I could or whatever. So that's where I fell into the idea of, well, maybe I could write a comic, and what is that? What does a script look like, and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
And so, but even then, I still wasn't like, I want to make comics. It was just like a side thing. I had the job, had a 9 to 5 job. We had a really good 9 to 5 job for a while. And so the comics were on the side, and I was just like, well, we'll do it, and we'll take our time, and we'll go to cons on the weekends and just have fun with it. And that was it. That was the plan. And so Critter was the first thing I started writing, because I had no idea how to write a comic, or a script, I guess. But I felt like, because I had 20 odd years at that point of just osmosis of comics and superheroes, like I felt like I understood the genre of superheroes, that I could figure out how to create within those boundaries of science fiction and superheroes and tights and capes and whatever. And so that's why Critter came first. And really, the second book that I did, Penny for Your Soul, it really came about because the artist that I had for Critter was moving very slowly, which wasn't a problem. I had no deadlines, because I was just like, we're just doing it, man. You turn in pages whenever you can. But he was going slowly, and I realized, well, while he's doing that, I have time to write. And so Penny for Your Soul got in my head, and I started to work on that. And so I had 2 scripts going early in my writing, and I still had no idea what I was doing, but I was writing 2 scripts at the same time to have that going. But it wasn't until the job, again, because I had that 9 to 5 job, and it was a good job, but this was like 2008, 9, right before like the housing bubble thing popped and all of that. So right in that period, as I was kind of doing the comics, and I had some forward motion with it, that's when I got laid off of the job. And I was like, well, okay, this is moronic timing, because everyone else in the world is struggling too. Hey, Tom, why don't you go make comics right now? But that's what I did, right? Is I was like, well, wait a minute, before I go get like a Walmart job or something, let me see what I can do with this if I really put time into it. Let me wrap up Critter. Let me really get this Penny for Your Soul thing going. What does this look like? How do I get it to a publisher / Diamond, whatever? And so that's really the origin story of me getting into comics, is just, in a way, sort of right place / right bad time. And but I had the opportunity, and so I was like, well, let me just go all the way in the pool, see if I can do anything with this whatsoever, before I go do anything else. And of course, we put out Penny for Your Soul, ended up coming out first. Basically, it got finished first, so we put Penny for Your Soul out. It sold out immediately. We went to a second printing. We were at San Diego Comic-Con our first year, thanks to some guys that I knew loosely in the industry at that point, because I was very, very new, but they were aware of me, and they were like, just come and sit at our booth. So I shared a booth with them.
Nice.
So we were at San Diego Comic-Con for our first year. We only had like 2 issues out at the time, plus the Critter book. And but then we were kind of off to the races. The book, like I said, the book sold out. Critter came out, it sold well. Put out issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, Penny. There was really like almost no attrition rate. Like normally you do like, number 1 sells 5,000 units, and then number 2 is like 2,500, and it just kind of falls off. We didn't make that 5, but we were like over 3. And then it just never really went away. We were always kind of in that 3 range. And so by the end of that year, I was kind of like, I think we can do this. Like, I think there's a possibility here. I think there's a lot more that I got to learn about the business and the cons and like how any of this works. But I think there's something here. And, then that took us into our second year. Critter became a mini series. Penny for Your Soul, we launched Legend of Oz, our Western reimagining of Oz back there. That was our second year we launched that. So, and at that point, we were on the Diamond Top 300, just like that. So it was a lot of weird timing. But again, it was never my intention to be like, I'm going to be a comic book writer. I'm going to make comics for a living. Like, that was just never the intention. It was just sort of doors closed and other ones opened. And I went through the open doors, and that's led me. That's a really long answer to the first question, but that's really kind of what got me here now, 15 years later, and this is what I do.
But and that's the thing is like you've stuck around. You've been able to. A lot
Yeah.
of people have that fear of success, and when that door opens, it's like they kind of maybe put one foot in. They don't go all in, and
Hmm.
you know, yes, financial things, and we'll get into like some of the challenges. But financially, I mean, that's what I hear. That's what I struggle with. The biggest thing, if money was not an issue, we would be putting out 100 comics. You know what I mean? It's just
Sure.
that's what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Of course.
And the Oz, yeah, I have actually one of Niai's covers, which I think was Evas and Niai. Niai, or I
Hmm. Yep.
probably
Ni.
didn't pronounce
Yes.
it. Yeah, met her a couple times. Really cool person.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's just like that's really interesting because some of the people I talk to also have a background in comics, or it's like they did maybe a little bit of writing or screenwriting or novel writing, but you just came in kind of fresh with nothing and learned as you went. And
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned you were with Diamond, right? With Critter and all that. So
Yeah.
I mean that's a challenge in itself, is just getting distribution. I think for a lot of us indie creators, we can be successful with more eyes on our product, right? I
Sure.
mean, if we do local cons, there's a saturation level. You can only do local cons for so long. You have to branch out. So there's the business side of things is probably the hardest thing for a lot of us to learn because there's so many facets to understand and to kind of navigate.
Yeah.
And kind of speaking of that, it kind of plays into the next question is like, is there any formal education for writing? Or you mentioned being an artist. Is there any like, no, no.
No, absolutely zero. My friend, I barely got out of high school with like D's in English. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, there is no rational. You look at the beginning of my life through like whatever schooling that I had, you'd be
Mhm.
like, this guy's not going to be a writer for a living. Like, how is this possible? Like, no
Yeah.
chance. So no, no, absolutely zero. I mean, like I said, as I came up, I was drawing,
Yeah.
so I was doing a lot of drawing. Um, the only thing, I don't know if I've ever told anybody this, the only thing that I have that would be sort of like training would be a friend of mine and I, when we were in high school, we created a game for ourselves, just something that we
Mhm.
could play ourselves. And within that game, there was storytelling. And so we would actually make sort of pseudo comics for the
Mhm.
story. So, I would write a story, but it would be like panels. It wasn't like
Mhm.
really heavy, strict panels, like do a box and then whatever. It
Right.
was very loose, but it was like, here's some information, here's some information, here's some information. And then I would like basically give that to him, and that would be sort of like, okay, the story has progressed. And
Mhm.
then he would take that information and do something on his side, and he'd
Yeah.
be okay, okay, here it is back to you. And same thing, same idea, just sort of weird pseudo comics. And then so back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And through that, we actually created this world um, that became a comic with Big Dog Inc. right before we got to Aspen. Unfortunately, we never finished it because when we got to Aspen, everything stopped and we just never had a
Mhm.
chance to get back to it. But for those that are really deep in Big Dog Inc., that comic book is called Cerusis, and it's our science fiction sort of all ages thing with the planet full of snakes, big giant people
Okay.
sized
That's
snakes and
interesting.
reptiles and so on. So
Yeah.
it did actually get there, and I have plans to finish that book because I really want to finish it. But that's the only sort of like, when I look back, that's my training. Again, that and just osmosis of just decades of
Mhm.
deep comic book reading. So I had some sense of like page one, panel one, like what do
Right.
we do? Page two, and then as I started to like, okay, what does a comic book script really look like? As I started to research that, I realized multiple things. One, it's very similar to like a movie script, which I was kind
Yeah.
of familiar with just because I'm a big movie person. And so I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
bought movie scripts just over the years, just as fun. I don't know why I had it, but I had it. I had movie scripts. So I
Yeah.
understood that sort of format. And then a comic book script is very similar to that. So, but then the second thing that I realized was, as I was looking at like, okay, here's an Alan Moore script, and here's like a Chris Claremont script, and here's like, whoever. Like there were generalities that were the same, but they weren't
Mhm.
like formatted the same. So I,
Right.
I kind of realized like, oh, so there's not really a way to do it. There's just sort of
Yeah.
points that you need, like you need to have the dialogue, like this person says this and this person says this, and you need to have some semblance of like how many panels do you want on the page, but it's not necessarily hyper descriptive. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's
Yeah.
Alan Moore and he writes paragraphs for every panel. But other times it's just like panel one, do what you want.
Yeah.
Here's what I need in it, and let the artist do it. So that's where I came from. It was sort of like, okay, I can figure this out and do it my own way. And my own way was a disaster in the early days. I mean, shit was like color coded and weird. Like this is red for this and blue for that. And then eventually I was like, this is horrendous.
That's not
right
that
now.
weird. That's not that weird, Tom, because I still do that. Okay? Like I color code every page as well. They're all the same color. They're not. It's not like Rainbow Bright, but like whatever page one, page two, it's always red, or it's like a darker red. Everything else is just like. And so like for me, I mean I have some formal education, not in comics, but in design and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like when I went to design school, it was like, okay, there's some principles here you got to learn before you can bend them or break the rules.
Yeah.
And that's what I ended up kind of learning. Color is a thing that people recognize the most, right? So yeah, no, I'm the same way. I color code that, and that's interesting because I know you're a big movie fan. You kind of talked a little bit about some movies, and I mean, I kind of see like that snake, story being like an old Roger Corman movie or something. That could be a lot of fun.
It's pure sci-fi. I mean, it would be very, very easy, honestly, to take it, adapt it, make it an animated thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's merchandise galore. It's ready. I mean, it's ready, like right now. So, all you producers in Hollywood that are watching this show right now, clearly
Yeah.
there's hundreds of producers
Right.
watching the show. It's
Can't keep
ready.
up with
Like
the comments.
I know, right? Everything is ready, right? I mean, we actually almost sold Oz as a TV show about, I don't know,
Oh,
12 years
interesting.
ago. It was, oh my God, it was painfully close. It was so close. And then it just, we just couldn't finalize it with this
Hmm.
particular studio. And but the guy that was helping me sell it, he was like, "Look, this is normal. Like you're going to go up a whole lot of ladders, a whole lot
Hmm.
of different, lengths, and it's just a matter of finding the right ladder with the right person at the top
Yeah.
to say
Yeah.
yes, and then you'll get something, going. But yeah, it was really hard for me to like let that go because it was so close. I mean, we were like
Yeah.
casting, not casting, but like, okay, who would you want
Loose
as
casting.
Dorothy
Yeah. Yeah.
Dorothy Gale? Like, what do you see here? And we were like, oh yeah, man, we got ideas. So that was a bummer, but
Interesting.
Hollywood's always been kind of sniffing around us, but I don't know that we've been taken seriously yet. Um, but I got so much more. Like I think the big problem with Oz was we were selling it before we had enough stuff.
Hmm.
We only had like the first maybe 2 volumes or something, so it was hard for, even though we were be able to pitch it further, it was hard for them to kind of look at what existed and sort of understand like what is it,
Envision.
where does it go, like what, yeah,
Yeah.
what's the long term. But now that I've got like, it's here somewhere, now that I've got all of
Oh, there's a
this,
ton of
now that I've
stuff
got
that you
all
produced.
of this,
Right.
I can be like, okay, look, I got years of TV time for you right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and it's all storyboarded, it's all laid out, and I know where the rest of it's going. And
Yeah.
we're ready now. We're ready now. So if I really can get somebody serious about this, and I've got a couple of producers that are looking at a couple of things that we do. If I can get somebody serious about it, there is endless property here to be,
Yeah.
turned into stuff.
And with that, like, what keeps you motivated? Because I know for a lot of us creators, like, we find kind of influences or motivations all over the place, right? As to tell our stories and to keep things going.
I
What's
need
one of the
I
things
need
that
money so I can buy all my old toys. This
all
is
your
my
jaw stuff?
motivation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's funny.
it's motivation. It's another one of these like tricky things. Really, is like I don't have like this daily motivation affirmation, like get in there, like write something, do something. Like I don't have that. I know that's really weird for people to say, but I really don't have that. I think my motivation really just comes from the idea that I want to see I want to see what's in my head on the paper. Like I want to
Hmm.
see it actually become, this physical
Yeah.
thing, right? So the motivation is get to the next one, get to the next one, get to the next one. So it's sort of like I guess a challenge to myself as far as motivation goes, because it's like, and two things. One is get to the next one, get to the next one. But also, I've come to a realization. I was watching an interview with somebody. Who was it? Somebody in comics was talking about the value of finishing a story. Right? I think it was Todd
Yeah.
McFarlane was talking about that, which is ironic because dude's on like issue 380 of Spawn. But maybe it wasn't Todd, but anyway, it was
Yeah.
somewhere in that sort of realm of dudes where they were like, look at the people that have finished a story, and then that
Hmm.
story at that point really can become sort of, that's how something becomes a classic when it's finished, right? If it's not finished, like if I died tomorrow and all this stuff that I have isn't finished,
Right.
the value of it is like diminished,
It
right?
shrinks. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
anybody that comes in, they'll be like, but it was never finished. Like, why would I
Right.
start it if it's never finished? So that's the other side of the motivation that I kind of got from that interview with this guy who I can't remember now. Is like, you know what? I got to finish this stuff. I want to finish, because all of these books that I have, they all have endings. None of this
Hmm.
was designed to just run eternally.
Okay.
Everything has I know where it ends. I know how it ends, generally speaking. So I got into that mode of like, oh yeah, I'm 50 years old, and
You
so
same.
um,
Same.
I want to be able to say I finished something,
Yeah.
and even if I finish it, like even if I finish Oz, like this story, that doesn't mean I can't do more, but it does mean that I have that sort of complete, you
Hmm.
know, whatever it is, 50, 60 issue story that can be put in a big omnibus hardcover, or
Hmm.
whatever it is, and just be an eternal thing. Even when I'm
Right.
gone, it can be a complete finished product. And so that, I think, is probably my current motivational style, is like, you know what? I want to finish some of this. I have no shortage of ideas, which is why I haven't finished anything, because every time I'm working on something, it's like, oh, but princesses versus zombies. Like I could
Yeah.
do that, and then that takes me away from the other stuff. So
Right.
I need to get some stuff done. It doesn't mean I'm going to rush into it and like power through and stunt its growth and its finale. But I want to focus and get some of this done so that I have these things sort of almost out of my head. Right, I don't have to think about Critter every day. I don't have to think about Penny for Your Soul every day. They're
Hmm.
done. They
Right.
are what they are supposed to be, and now I can focus more on Penny for Your Soul, or Princesses versus Zombies. I can focus more on single story things like our Shark book for next year. I can
Hmm.
focus on just different elements of writing, because I know those things are finished, and so I think that's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And this could be a long kind of question because I know you have a lot of maybe external things that you love, film and things of that nature, and just the whole TV film industry. But what is your biggest influences to produce? Like, obviously Oz. I know you're a fan of Wizard of Oz, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so you like Wizard of Oz, you make a book. Oz. That's kind of an obvious almost
Yeah, that's
influence.
not how that happened, but for the sake of the question,
Yeah.
continue. Yeah,
Yeah, no, well, I was just curious because I know there's a lot of external things that influence all of us, right? I was on a
sure.
podcast, someone was talking about he was at the hospital and some crazy thing happened outside and he wrote that into his comic. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I mean, we could do that as creators, we have that freedom. But what are
Yep.
like some of your biggest influences as far as like your characters and the stories you tell?
Well, everything I do is so different. That's it's kind of a hard question, because Critter and Penny for Your Soul and Legend of Oz and Ursa Minor, like these are all 180-degree opposites
Hmm.
of each
Yeah.
other. So, um, the inspiration is just that, basically it's where I came from as a kid. Is I grew up with all of this different stuff,
Okay.
the Howling to Star Wars to
Yeah.
Ghostbusters to Jaws to whatever, the Cannonball Run. So I came up with like a really wide variety of everything in my life, and I never said no to like no, I don't want to watch that musical, right? So I
Hmm.
watched Annie when I was a kid, and
Yeah,
now I
so
watch
did I.
Moulin Rouge, and things like that. Um, so I came up with like just and I'm a sports guy too. Like that's one of the
Yeah.
oddities is like a lot of artistic or comic book people are like, why do you watch football? I'm like, I love football. I
Oh,
came up with
dude, I love
football as
football.
a kid. Yeah. So I have all of this weird like energy, and
Hmm.
it's crazy because people will say no, Tom's full of crap, he hates everything. It's so false.
Uh,
I mean, you can just look around my office. I have crap everywhere. Like
yeah.
I very much like like IP and movies and comics and stuff. But
Hmm. Hmm.
um, so for me it was always like, so with Critter, like I said, it just started because I thought I could do it. I was like, I think I understand superheroes, so I'm going to start with that. With Penny for Your Soul, I always had kind of a weird connection with like organized religion and stuff. We came up like
Yeah.
Christian, but we were watching things like the Ten Commandments, with Charlton Heston and stuff. So all of
Yep.
that was in my. But then like Raiders of the Lost Ark came around, and like suddenly
Oh
I had
yeah.
different questions about things, and
Hmm.
so that's where Penny for Your Soul came from. Is that um, Legend of Oz was just sort of like, I am a Wizard of Oz fan in general. And it was just something that popped into my brain, and I ran with it. Ursa Minor, I love horror, so I love
Yeah.
werewolves and stuff. But I was like, well, let me, what's the next level of a werewolf? And I was like, oh yeah, a werebear. Like let's level that up. Um,
Hmm.
Scheherazade is just pure science fiction genre mashup. It lets us just kind of stuff anything together that we want, which was really just creatively exciting. Princesses versus Zombies was a joke. I was at cons, and we would get to talking about things, and things like The Walking Dead would come up, and I'd be like, I don't
Right. I
like
agree.
Walking Dead, but I don't really like zombie stuff in general. Like there's a few key zombie things that I like, and they were
Less
like,
than
oh,
five.
okay, okay. Oh yeah, easily less than five.
Yeah.
And so at one point at con, someone asked me, we were at Baltimore Comic Con. Somebody asked me, okay, well then if you did a zombie thing, like what would you do to make you interested in the zombie thing? And I
Yeah.
was like, dude, it would have to be so just like outside the box. It would have to be like princesses versus zombies. That's literally how that happened.
Hmm.
And so that night we went to Hooters in the Inner Harbor at Baltimore, and I was there with Jesse Witchman and some friends of mine, friends, the Buchanans, and it came up again, and Princesses versus Zombies came up again, and we were talking about it and laughing about it, and then a couple months later, I just reached out to Jesse, and because he's an artist and a designer,
Oh, he's
and I was like,
phenomenal. Yeah.
yeah, he's great, and I was like, this guy could do it, and so I said, do you remember that thing we were talking about? He was like, yeah. I said, do you want to like take some ideas and of mine and just kind of design like Cinderella for
Hmm.
this, and let's just see what it would look like, and maybe we make an art print, and we'll just put the art print out, and we'll see if people even understand what they're looking at. He was like, yeah. So he did Cinderella, and we debuted it. We had no book, we had no story, I had no concept, I had nothing. I had Cinderella, Cindy, we call her Cindy, in
Hmm.
the trashy Cinderella costume, sitting on a Corvette with zombies kind of coming around, and we made that a print for C2E2, and people would come up to the booth at C2E2 and lose their minds. They were like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Well, that's a print." Yeah, but
Yeah.
what is it? Where's the book? I'm like, "There's no book. It's just
Yeah.
that. This is the only thing that
Yeah.
exists." And they were like, "Oh my god, give me that! How do I get on your mailing list? I want to know when this
Yeah.
book comes." I was like, "All right." So we did it again. He did Mrs. White, Snow White, same idea. Trashy costume. Gave her an axe and like an apple purse and stuff.
Yep.
Did that at another con with another print. What is that? I was like, all right, something's going on. And so,
Yeah.
a couple of months after that, I was like, all right, let me figure out what it is. I don't know what it is. And so I wrote a kind of a little 8-page preview concept book.
Hmm.
We did a 69-hour Kickstarter campaign. It exploded. People went crazy for it, and I was like, oh my god, now I have something else that I
Yeah.
have to do because I took the joke too far, and
Right.
everybody liked it. So all the stuff that I have sort of comes from different weird places and different
Yeah.
reasons. I have a kaiju book because I'm a Godzilla fan. I'm a
Yeah.
Jaws fan, so we're doing a shark book. So everything just kind of comes from here and there and wherever, and it's not really any necessarily rhyme or reason to it.
That's fair. People love mashups. They love. I mean, the whole like Disney princess thing, and then you throw in zombies, you throw in werewolves, you vampire, whatever. I mean, you can mash up until your heart's
Yeah,
content.
well, and it's
Yeah.
loaded. The funny part is I hate the zombie genre, but it's littered with Easter eggs from
Yeah.
zombie stuff, whether I like it or not. Like it's in there.
Yeah.
There's something no one's noticed yet too, um, which is funny because people that are like, "Oh, I love zombies, zombies." I'm like, okay, buy that book. No one has noticed it yet. I'm not going to say what it is, but no one has noticed it, and I'll see if I'll figure out the first person to catch it, or if they have noticed it, they haven't said anything to me.
Right.
But
Right.
it's there. I will tell you that if you know what I'm talking about, it's there on purpose, and there's a reason that I put it there. So
Yeah.
go find the error in
Yeah.
Princesses versus Zombies, and then we'll have another discussion as to why it's there.
Nice. Nice. That's fun. And Easter eggs are typically put there with intent. It's not just something
Yeah.
that
Oh
we
yeah.
throw
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
around. They're
Absolutely.
there for
Yes.
a reason.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's a dual purpose Easter egg. It's there.
yeah.
It's there for a reason, but it's
Hmm.
wrong for a reason as well.
Right.
So yeah.
Nice. That's fun. I kind of a twofold question. I mean, because I know we've talked about a lot of IPs that you've written and worked on and have success with. This isn't just something you're
Hmm.
like writing and it's like, I don't know, kind of does okay. No, I mean these are like moderately successful in the indie world, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Like you said,
Absolutely.
that 3 to 5,000, but that's still pretty successful. Um, what would be? It's kind of like, what's the biggest challenges with like just being an indie creator, and then do you feel that those having multiple titles has hurt that? Is having multiple titles like part of the challenge, or is it just other challenges?
Multiple titles is a challenge for a couple of reasons. One is you have to keep them all going, so you've got your hands in multiple cakes at the same time, and that's not always easy. So there's that. Then there's also just the idea that it's the double side of the coin. Like when you have a whole bunch of different things, uh, you know, there's the old adage of what does it say? Uh, Jack of all trades, but a master
Hmm.
of none, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So there's the idea of like you can be Stephen King who just does basically horror stuff, and
Hmm.
then he
Hmm.
becomes known just for horror stuff. That's if you want
Right.
horror, you go to Stephen King. If he were to just do like a weird rom com, like a legitimate rom com, people would be like, "What? What are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, give me the horror stuff." So for me, it's like I have people that'll come in and be like, "Oh, I love Penny for Your Soul," but I don't give a crap about Critter. I don't give a crap
Right.
about Ursa Minor or whatever because they're so polar opposite things.
Right.
So I think that there's multiple challenges. It's one, just keeping them going, and it's two, sort of having a booth, you know, or a library, of your content that is just so vastly different. It might be hard to drag people from one to the other to the other. However,
Yeah.
having that breadth of genre can also work for you because if they don't like Penny for Your Soul, they might like Critter. If they
Right. There's
don't like, yeah, if they don't like kaiju books, they might like the zombie book. So
yeah.
for me, we have so much stuff that it doesn't matter who you are when you come to my booth at Comic Con. There is a 95% chance that I have something that will tap a vein and be like,
Hmm.
well, I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Uh, Princesses versus Zombies is basically Buffy meets The Walking Dead. Got you right there. If you like
Right. Right.
literal vampire elements, let me take you to Ursa Minor, vampires,
Yeah.
werewolves, blah blah blah, whatever. Superheroes, we got you over here. So that's the plus of it. but again, you have to keep all that stuff going, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of
Hmm.
time drain because if you're working on one, you're not working on the other. So,
Yeah.
um, again, back to the earlier question, is like I got to finish some things so that I can say I'm done. This is done. You can buy all 10 volumes done, and I'm on
Hmm.
to new things. So yeah, that's so it's a dual thing. I see it as a challenge, but I also see it as multiple doors open
Yeah.
to potential buyers, because you're not limiting yourself. Like if somebody comes up and they're not into horror and that's all you do,
Yeah.
you have no chance, virtually no chance to convert them. But if they come up and like, the husband is like, oh, I love this horror stuff, and she's like, whatever, I'd be like, well, we got superheroes, we got westerns, we got
Yeah.
steampunk, we got this, and
Hmm.
I might be able to sell to both of them.
Yeah, and that's I've noticed that as well. Just even with books I have, and then talking to other creators, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Where it's good to have that variety, but it also can be
Hmm.
challenging to produce the variety and
For sure.
having all of that there.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
the other good thing though, real quick, is when you
yeah,
have all this other stuff
hmm,
going at the same time. Because I've had this question before where people are like, well, what happens if you get like writer's block? I'm like, well, listen, if I'm struggling with superheroes today, I can go write princesses. And if I'm struggling with
hmm,
princesses, I can go write werewolves. And if I'm struggling with
yeah,
werewolves, I can go write whatever else. So there is an advantage from a creative standpoint of keeping your mind a little more fluid
hmm,
because you're in all of these things kind of all the time. So writer's block for me is never really a thing because I can always sort of pivot into, if I wake up and I'm like, I am not writing westerns today, I can pivot into something else, and
hmm.
we can keep on going.
Yeah, and it does, it kind of helps you from having burnout and also keeping,
Yeah.
like you said, a fresh mind. Like, I'm not doing this today, I can do something else. And I'm still being productive. I'm still like getting the business going and getting to that completed state of
Hmm.
characters and books and stuff. And this is kind of a big one too, because I think for a lot of us indie creators, we rely on social media for promotion. But you quickly mentioned email lists as well, and I know that's a big thing for us indie creators because those that get with our email list, those are our fans, right? Those are the core fans that are ones that have backed our Kickstarters, that have reached out to us. We met at shows, we've had a personal connection with on probably multiple different levels. So it just becomes like, how do you manage kind of promoting, Big Dog Inc. with all the books you do? Is it more social media focused? Is it more email listing? Is it website? I mean, what are some of the avenues here?
I'm the worst at all of it. I'm the worst at all of it. But here's another weird thing, right? Is like I everything that I do, I base on myself. So I think to myself, like, okay, if I'm making this post, who cares? Is it I know that there's like you said, there's like the core. I know the core is going to be like they're excited, like, oh hey, like there's
Hmm.
a new piece of art, or like, oh, Tom made an announcement for a release date or something. But social media doesn't work the way that we think it works, and
Hmm.
and although it is sort of in a shift now away from kind of what it used to be to really like uh, personality slash merit based stuff. Like it's if you can get people to engage, whether they're
Hmm.
just clicking like or clicking or making a post on it or whatever,
Hmm.
um, that will now more than ever spike their algorithm into saying, well, okay, the algorithm says, oh, well, they like Tom's thing. We're going to
Hmm.
show them Tom's thing again. And then if
Right,
they click
right.
again, oh, they really like Tom's thing. Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
So it's the virality element to it. But my posts, I try and really spread my posts out from rather than just like here's a book, here's a book, here's a book. It's
Right,
like
right.
I try to like kind of give you everything. Like last night it was the Chargers and the Eagles, and all I was doing was
All night.
posting
All night.
Charger. I was like, holy crap, it's tied again. Like the whole night was just nothing but live tweeting the game. And then today. I did some posts about some things. I did some Patreon stuff, so that the
Mm-hmm.
Patreon people, they always get to see everything early.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just general stuff. Oh, movies, TV, whatever I'm watching. And then, oh, and by the way, I make a book. And then I'll go
Mm-hmm.
back sort of through that cycle, like, oh, sports happened and a movie happened, and you know, I
Yeah.
bought a shark, and that's my stuff. And then, oh, and I bought, and here's a book, right? So you
Yeah.
kind of try
Yeah.
and keep a cycle of interest. So again, it's sort of like going to the Comic Con and having all the products. Somebody might not care about sports. Somebody might not care about the movie. Somebody might not care about the shark. Somebody might not care about your comic, but somebody in all of those things will like something, and that should
Mm-hmm.
be able to drag a little bit of
Help. Yeah.
a little bit of engagement to you one
Traction.
way or another.
Yeah.
And the more that you can sort of connect with the fans on a level that like they understand,
Right.
that they have a connection to, that's even better. Like I'll get like, you know, I'm a big movie guy, and so here's all my like soundtracks. I just buy
Mm-hmm.
soundtracks all the time because I listen to music all the time. So whenever I get
Same.
stuff, I'll be like, "Oh, the X Files and the
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek," and then that's stuff that they know, and so they react to it like, "Oh yeah, I love Star Trek. I saw it when I was a kid, whatever." So anything, literally anything that you can do to get them to react, particularly if you can get them to post something, that just
Mm-hmm.
spikes their algorithm, and you show up more in it. So I think the more sort of breadth of content that you do, the better. I am no social media wizard here, guys. I mean, I'm fully aware that like every channel or every platform sort of does
Is
things
different.
differently and has different requirements, and I'm like, yo, I don't have time for that. Honestly, I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time for all of that. And I know that Gary Vee will be pissed off that I said that, because he'll be like, well, go learn, motherfucker. I'm like, no, I don't want to learn all of this. I
No,
don't
I don't
want,
need to.
literally, I don't want to learn, Gary. But I understand. I do understand that that's the way it is. And that's why a lot of people will hire like
Yeah.
marketing dudes to just be like, look, we'll do your social media for you.
Yeah.
Because we understand how it all, sort of
Mm-hmm.
matriculates, and there's probably some value in that. And I've looked into that a little bit to see if I could be like, okay, look, who wants to just do this for me? Because,
Yeah.
I'll help, and if you want to do like TikTok videos, like I'm in, but
Yeah.
my creative space has to really exist for me versus
Right.
like, what dance am I doing on TikTok with my comic book in my hand, right? Like I don't have time for that. But if someone wants to come to me and be like, okay, this is what you're going to do for like 2 minutes, and then I'm going to break this into 12 pieces of content. Cool, let's go. I'm
Yeah.
down. Just you tell me what it is, and then I'll do it,
Yeah.
and then I'll go back and I'll go back to work. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's we have an email list, we have all of our social medias, we have a
Mm-hmm.
Patreon. Like I said, Patreon is basically like for anyone watching, if you're if you're really deep in the like how do people do it type of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you like to kind of see how the cake is made, that's basically our Patreon, right? Is we show you like roughs and lines and inks and colors
Mm-hmm.
and logo design and character design, and you get to kind of watch how we do things and how we build all of our
Mm-hmm.
stuff, how we Tetris it all together, and you get to see it well ahead of time, than the general public. Also, we do stuff where our patrons have voted on things for the company,
Mm-hmm.
like character names a couple of times. They got to vote who the people were involved for the. A few years ago, we did a BDI 365, our special days sort of
Mm-hmm.
event.
Mm-hmm.
We had pillow fight day, so they got to vote on who was in the pillow fight, that kind of stuff. So we have kind of fun, just like engagement stuff within Patreon, as well as like, look, here's what we're doing, here's how it's working,
Right.
and the occasional like, look, here's a couple of layouts, like you tell me which one do you guys want, and then we'll use the one that they choose. So that kind of stuff. So we kind of try and have some fun with the patrons, and then there's bonuses too. So like if you're a patron and you back one of our Kickstarters, you get what's called Patreon perks, which generally speaking is an original art trading card. Just it's
Yeah.
literally original art, like a sketch card. We just toss
Yeah.
one of those in for you. And then sometimes we've done special things like special metal cards or things like that. So there's bonuses as well to being a patron. But if you're really like a creator, especially, or if you want that sort of advance notice of what's coming, how, who, where, that's what our Patreon does.
Yeah, it's Patreon's an interesting thing because you can offer I mean, pretty much anything for the most
Yeah,
part,
yeah,
as a Patreon. And yeah, that's a lot to take in. I mean, it's kind of like from the beginning to social media, and I mean, we all want to know your next movie review and how that falls into your rankings.
Do you really?
So,
Do you really want to know? Are you sure?
look,
Because a lot of people get really angry at me sometimes, you know.
no, we watched the Superman movie because we thought that would be fun, and
Yeah,
it was okay. It was okay.
yeah,
It was fun. Shut your brain off.
yeah.
It was fun. I really wanted like Fantastic Four, but unfortunately that was a train wreck, and it just was terrible writing. And I love the look of it, and I think people got wrapped up in the love of that movie because of the look, the almost nostalgia part of that film. But
Sure.
it just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wasn't. I didn't think it was that good. But
I see.
anyways.
For me, the Fantastic Four, I think it suffered really only because it wasn't a superhero movie.
Oh,
Because there wasn't a lot of like superhero ish
stuff.
things. But for me, like that didn't matter because I'd already seen that anyway. Like with the
Mhm.
first two Fantastic Fours, they
Yeah.
were all just crazy superhero
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
So for me, I embraced the science fiction of it because it was a science fiction
Yeah.
movie.
It was. It was.
And yeah, and it's still not without its problems. I have my own set of issues with the movie, but I thought for considering what we had already gotten in those first two movies and then the third one, and now here, I
Wow.
was like,
Yeah.
dude, we are really leveled up from where we were, just in a visual sense, and we did get a real Galactus and
Oh
you know all
yeah.
the kind of stuff. So again, I think that for a like it was called First Steps. Like I was like, that's a pretty good first step. And if that's the first step, I think like the doors are completely open to wild expansion to what the Fantastic Four can be. But I totally understand, you know, people's problems with it, and I had my own. But
Yeah.
you know, I was okay with it. I was okay. I was more okay with that than I was with Superman because Superman really went out of its way to screw with itself. Just the Jor-El part alone, no spoilers,
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
what are you doing right
Yeah.
here?
There's no
Like,
canon.
it's yeah. So Superman, again, I agree. It was okay. It was very superhero. It
Yes.
brought Superman back to what we understood as Superman,
Yeah.
not the Snyder dark stuff. So, and I
Right.
think that's
Right.
where Superman succeeded is that it like people felt it. They were like, oh, this
Hmm.
feels
Like a
right.
Superman movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but then when you go back in and you kind of analyze the story and what's going on, it's kind of like,
You're like, it's still kind of bad writing.
well, this is not great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It,
but again, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's
it's
you know,
it,
art is subjective. I always tell people, look, I
yeah.
may come down.
100%.
Like I said, I'm gruff. I'm harsh. Um, like what you like. It doesn't bother me that you like something I don't like.
Yeah.
But what I always try and impart is if you do like something and I don't, or if I have problems, I want you to think about why you like it because there's a lot of people that just like for the sake of liking, and that's okay too.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
not a problem. Like I know people that are like, "Oh, Star Wars, everything Star Wars is great." I'm like, "Well, is it?
No.
It's not. No, it's not.
But is it?
But that's just where they exist. Is like it
Right.
exists, so I love it. You know, it's like for
Yeah.
me, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I
Same.
am not an it exists, so I love it person. Even
No.
in that genre, I can still
Oh
come in
yeah.
and go, that's not great.
Right.
And so there's that. So I always just like to sort of have conversations like, okay, you like this movie. Why?
Hmm.
And most of the time I get, well, I just liked it. I just liked the way it made me felt. Like we talked with Superman. Just it felt right.
Yeah.
Everything felt so good. We're very much in a vibe society right now.
Yeah.
It's not so
Yeah.
much content or context. It's just how did it make you feel coming out of the theater or watching it on Netflix or whatever? Like,
Right.
were you happy when you were supposed to be happy? Were you scared when you were supposed to be scared?
Right.
Were you,
Right.
you know, whatever it is, just the vibe of it. No one ever comes out and is like, man, I love that movie because this actor and that story and this, like, I never hear that. They're always just in the vibe, right? And so that's kind of where my challenge always comes from because I'm a writer. I was like,
Yeah.
I want you to vibe on my stuff, so certainly. I want you to
Absolutely.
feel the right things, but I also want you to sort of recognize how you got there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes when you start to think about how you got there, you start to see the cracks. And a lot of people don't want to see the cracks. They just want
Right.
that feeling, which again, it's totally fine. But for me, because I'm a creator, I'm a writer specifically, um, I study this stuff now. I've gotten very, very into movies and studying direction and lighting and storytelling beats and
Production,
all that
all
kind of
that good
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, everything. And so when I go in to watch a movie, it's like I want to be entertained. I am there because, well, one of two reasons. One, I want to be entertained. Show it to me. I'm here for it. Give it to me.
Yep.
Make me happy. And then if it doesn't work, that's where my brain turns on and I'm like, look what you did. Look what you did. Look what you could have did. You know, like
Yeah.
and then it's really tough to kind of get me back. But sometimes I also go because I know I'm going to hate it. I genuinely know this is going to be bad. I'm here for this horrendous experience and I want it all. Give it to me. Like I went to go see Madam Web last year. I was there on day one,
I haven't
first
seen it.
showing. I was like,
No. Nope.
I want this. I want this horrendous experience. And basically in that experience, it's like I've seen your trailer. I know this is going to be bad. I want you to prove me wrong. Show me you've got something else. I want something else. And then, you know, I just came out of it like just shaking my head like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
It's two things. Like my wife said several years ago when the whole Marvel kind of started showing us that hey, we could do superhero movies, whether it was canon or not. Like on the big screen, it was fun. It was Spider-Man flying around, Iron Man flying around, like all that fun stuff. And well, you kind of see Batman behind me, but I have like three of them back there, and Wolverine and Spider-Man are the other two. That's to me my holy trinity. So when I'm not a fan of Tom's Spider-Man, and it's just like she's like, look, how many artists draw Spider-Man over the years? I was like, a lot. She's like, okay, just think of this as someone's artist interpretation. You don't have to like it. I was like, okay, fair. So that's my mindset whenever I go into like film. It's kind of like this is just an artist's interpretation, and
Of
so you're
course.
never going to get canon. Rarely are you going to get things kind of directly from source material because Hollywood likes to do Hollywood, and you know,
Yeah, source material to me doesn't really matter.
yeah,
In a lot of cases because I don't know it. Like there's too much source material, so
there's
it's
a
like
ton, yeah,
you could be showing me something that's straight out of a comic and I wouldn't even know it. So I don't get hard about source material. I don't like when they do weird casting for stuff just because. Like here's like I never really liked what's her name? Zendaya as MJ, right?
yeah,
Like I'm like, okay, so I get it. We had Mary Jane, we had Gwen, now we get MJ. Like again, like you said, it's interpretation. It's a different thing. I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, but you know what? It doesn't work for me because not only that, they changed the entire supporting cast. You know,
right,
like
right.
everybody was the opposite of what they were in the comic books.
In the book,
And so when
right?
that happens, then it becomes noticeable. Then you're kind of like, well, what are
Oh,
we doing? Like, why are we doing this? This is a little strange. For me, the Tom Holland movies, I don't really like Tom Holland. Like, and some of that is not his fault because he can only do what the script says. You know,
yeah, that's true.
he's not writing
That's true.
dialogue and stuff. So like, you know, in the first movie where it's all just like Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark, can I be an Avenger?
Yeah, I'm like,
I'm just like, this is
stop.
not Spider-Man. You got to
No.
stop. This is not Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But everybody loved that, you know, and they were like, oh no, that's exactly what he would be. And I'm like, I get where you're coming from, but if that's your defense, then you cannot come to me and talk to me about Anakin being emo and upset in Star Wars because that's
Right.
exactly what he would be.
Yeah.
So you either have to complain about both or accept both, and if you accept one and don't accept the other, then we have a problem. You know, and again, this is where just sort of critical thinking comes in and sort of media
Exactly.
literacy and so on. So again, it's not Tom's fault, but I don't like his Spider-Man.
That version, yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, I can't torture myself too much. I kind of fell down the rabbit hole of like bad movie charm. So like the so bad it's good type of movies, right?
sure.
They're just
Yeah.
they're bad and trashy and horrible and bad scripts, and some of them I find charming and some of them are just like this is torture. So I mean that's how I torture myself. I torture my wife with watching some of those movies, but like I can't do big Hollywood movies that I know are going to be a train wreck. It's like Madam Web. I knew was not going to be good. I could
Hmm.
not sit there.
Hmm.
I would have walked out. I probably would have walked out from that movie. So, but speaking of, Oz and characters and all this fun stuff we've been talking about, this was one of your last ish type of Kickstarters. Um, this is something you mentioned about, like, well, we were kind of setting up for this, that you have one coming out in January.
Hmm.
And is that the next kind of story from this, or yeah,
Yeah.
just let
Yeah.
everyone
So
know.
that'll be, yeah, January. So this, what you're looking at on the screen, was the
Hmm.
omnibus of all those books I showed you earlier. So the first four
Okay.
volumes of trade paperbacks are basically out of print. I don't have hardly any left. And so we had to make a decision of either just putting them back in print or making a new product that we've never done before,
Hmm.
which we decided to do that. So this is the omnibus that we should have like towards the end of January, early February, depending on
Hmm.
how fast the printer is working. We've had some issues getting the file formatting right for them, which is driving me
Oh,
crazy.
interesting.
But yeah, it's everybody's got sizes and bleeds, and this is like Jesus
Hmm.
Christ, like all right, whatever. So we'll get it, and it should be
Yeah.
here. But so this will be the first four volumes all in one big book. It's like literally 500 pages. Of an
Nice.
omnibus, hardcover omnibus, and then there's also a softcover version of it too. So, Legend of Oz is basically a Western reimagining of the Wizard of Oz. So instead of ruby slippers, Dorothy's got ruby spurs, ruby bullets, Toto's her horse. It still has all the fantasy stuff. So you'll see like the flying monkeys, the witches, the haunted forest.
Hmm.
But Oz as a world is grounded in the Wild West.
Yeah, it's a I have a few issues of Oz, and they're always fun. It's just, like I've kind of said in other podcasts, like you can have a good, if you have bad art, and there's always this debate, like what is better, good writing or good art? And to me, I think they're both equally important, because bad
Yes.
writing is only going to take you so far. Yeah,
Yes.
if you have bad writing, fans will fall off. If you have bad art, it's gonna fall off, right? And I think what you do
Yeah.
with
If
Big
you,
Dog,
it's a double edged sword because if it doesn't
yeah.
look good, it's going to be hard for people to look at it. So,
Hmm.
but if it's nice to look at, you got to have substance from your characters that works as well.
Exactly.
Or otherwise, people are like, well, the character doesn't, connect with me or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, it really is an equal parts type of thing. And I like to think that we've always had great art across the board for
Hmm.
our books, and then from there, it like I said earlier, it's on me to figure out how to write this stuff and and make it valuable to the readers. And I think that now that I've been doing this for 15 years, I think one of the cool things about this omnibus, and we did all of our trade paperbacks, like if you were to just buy volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Hmm.
like I think one of the cool things is that you can really start not just at the beginning of a book, but at the
Hmm.
beginning of my career in this, as well as some of these artists. A lot of these artists is their first sort of
Yep.
long term, stuff. And so not only do you get to watch the character and the story evolve, you get to watch my writing style evolve, you get to watch these artists evolve and grow. And so it's a really unique sort of, environment, this book of like, this is where they started, this is where they got to, and watch how it got better and better and better, all the way through.
Hmm.
So yeah.
That dust jacket's pretty sweet though. I'm kind of a sucker for like sepia tone stuff, and just like being old west. That's like money right there, because that, to
Mm-hmm.
me, that says old west, is
Yep.
that old look. Yeah, I would agree. And also, it's not just having good covers, right? You can have a cover artist that does a phenomenal job, but understanding page layouts, understanding the
Mm-hmm.
script, and saying, okay, who's talking first, and how does that person play as being the first person in the panel, or certain things like that. Understanding, there's a lot that goes into being an artist, especially nowadays. I think it's a little bit more critical because we know more than we did maybe 50, 60 years ago. So,
I know more than I
this
knew 10 years ago. Like
exactly. Uh,
that's really the key, right? Is like I get to a point where, I get really heavily into movies, and like I said, like I study them, I look at the visuals and so on. And I started to translate the movie stuff into the way that I write. And I would get people that would tell me, they'll literally tell me at cons, or sometimes just on posts, they'll be like, when I read your comic, I feel like I just watched a movie. And I was like,
Nice.
yes,
Yeah,
because
that's an awesome
you're supposed
compliment.
to. That's yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They're like they've used the word like it feels cinematic, and I was like, oh
Hmm.
yeah. So I that's a very tangible sort of response to like,
Hmm.
am I doing better? Yes, they're seeing it, they're reacting to it. So what I'm doing is working. So again, you'll watch my sort of stubbing my toe in the early days, and then it'll get better and better and better, all the way up. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's nuances to writing, and it's just things that we
Oh yeah.
learn. It's like those growing pains. Like you don't want it to be too wordy, but you want to be able to tell your story. You need character
Yep.
development, but you don't need 700 words on a page. So yeah, it's a balance.
It is.
You have
It's absolutely
this was
balanced.
a pretty huge campaign. There's quite a bit going on here. A lot of fun stuff.
Well, this was yeah. So this was what we call our book fair. We did one last year, and then we did, or the previous year, and it went over really well. And basically, the idea of the book fair was just like old school book fairs. Like you come
Mhm.
in, and we just have anything you could possibly want available. Trade paperbacks, back issues, across
Mhm.
all of our lines. Everything that we do, you can get something in here. So even if you didn't want the omnibus, there's all this other stuff, just like we talked about, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
really want the omnibus, but what else is there? There's all the critter,
yeah.
there's all the penny for your soul, there's everything that you can dive in and get a taste of something
Yeah, of what's available, we should say, because like you said, yeah, I mean, you're kind of
of
running
what's
out of.
available for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's not. I mean, we do have that flexibility to reprint things really till our heart's content. But
Oh yeah,
I think at the end of the
none of
day,
this. Yeah, none of this is reprint. Well, the trade paperbacks are in perpetual print, but when you're talking about
yes,
the back issues,
no,
we generally do about 100 of them, and then they're gone. So when
that's
you
it.
see our book fairs like this, it's like all that means is I went into the warehouse and I was like, well, I've got like 8 of those, so
Yeah.
we'll put them up on the campaign, and when they're
Hmm.
gone, they're gone.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, and that's the thing with Kickstarter in general is it's very exclusive, and that's how we kind of keep it exclusive is to sit there and
Hmm.
say, hey, look, we're only printing so many of these books. Get them while you can. They're not going to
Hmm.
last forever.
Yep.
So yeah, yeah. We'll keep an eye out for that campaign in January because it's always fun. Your
Yeah,
campaigns are
it's either going
always
to be the
fun.
seven. Yeah, it's either going to be the 17th or the 24th. I haven't
Hmm.
locked it down yet. We're kind of aiming for the 17th, but it is feasible that we might go one more week.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I will wrap this up here, and it's been a lot of fun chatting with you about comics, film, all kinds of fun stuff. And for anybody out there, definitely give Tom a follow. Look for him on social media. I mean, you're Big Dog Inc. everywhere, or your
Yeah,
your
pretty
name.
much you can look up Big Dog Inc. You'll find us. Most of what we do is on Facebook, and then it kind of
Mhm.
goes out from there. X and like I said, Patreon, and there is a TikTok where we have some things there, but there's not a ton there. But
Mhm.
you can get in before we start doing stuff. Um,
Ground
but yeah,
floor.
Facebook is really our thing. That's
Mhm.
kind of where everything starts. But there is an Instagram. There is all that other kind of stuff if you want
Yeah.
to do that.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and happy to have you on any other time you got stuff going on and want to talk about it.
For sure. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, and I will see you on the next video.